I don't know, like besides one thing that I just saw like a day or two ago, I can't remember what it was for, but it wasn't the biggest deal. I was like, okay, you don't have an Android app, cool. I don't typically see that kind of exclusionariness as much, and I'm kind of grateful that people seem to have gotten it together. Even though some versions of iPhone will be notably better, like apps, I should say, iPhone versions of certain
Yeah,
apps.
yeah, that's true for sure. But like, I agree. I haven't been seeing like iPhone exclusive. At least I don't know. They just haven't been telling me about it. So maybe they've probably gotten better at keeping it secret.
Secret. Yeah, exactly. It's all part of their plan.
Another thing that's part of the plan is introducing this podcast.
Boom.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. It's a podcast where I interview my amazing guy friends who are of the nerdier variety. Um, I would like Toby. Would you say that you're nerdy or
I guess if I have to admit it, yeah. I mean, I definitely always rocked with nerd culture, or at least I kind of grew into it more as a
yeah?
form of identity.
If you can introduce yourself, like tell us a little bit, like what is it that you do? Where are you based
Yeah,
out of? Because you're in Maryland.
yeah. So Toby for all the fine folk at home. Based out of Maryland. I got that exactly correct. Grew up in Maryland, different parts. Graduated university outside of Baltimore, and then I was in upstate New York for a few years in grad school, and I actually lived in Boston. I moved there for my first job in
Right.
2019, so that's
Yeah.
where I actually met Elle. It was
Yes.
online through the Yang, the Blacks for Yang.
Yeah.
So it's just also kind of another nerdy-ish. I mean, it's just different in politics, but it's like it was still that kind of vibe of like internet nerd weirdos, tech adjacent. And my background's in tech. I did computer science and math in college, and that I always kind of knew I wanted to do something. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be exactly a software dev, but I knew I wanted to go into that field, and so I did end up being a software engineer. So that's my background technically, is software engineer. Recently pivoted pivoted ish into data engineer, so still that kind of tech field.
Mm.
um and especially living here in the Maryland area, working, um there's a lot of kind of government contracts, so that's like the space that I've been in, is kind of like gov tech. um and yeah, so that's kind of it on my personal professional. I don't know if you want to go more to interests and stuff, or that will come up a little bit more.
Yeah.
um
That'll definitely come up a little bit more. But yeah, so you're in government tech, so I that must be going swimmingly right now.
yeah,
Must
actually. uh
amazing.
yeah, gosh, even just earlier, before, like a few hours before, I was not, I wouldn't say putting out the fire, but I was seeing an email that I was like, that was not probably what I wanted to see. So I was trying to figure out some stuff, like just a contract that is not coming through that we thought, and that was like 4:30. I was like, oh, okay. Not like I had to do anything about it, but it was just like I wanted to make sure I responded and stuff. So anyway, that's a whole
Yeah,
nother thing.
yeah.
It's just
That's a,
sometimes things are cool until they're not, and then you're like, oh, well, now I have to really rethink what I'm doing with my life. But we're here, and we still have the
yeah.
job. We're still getting paid for now.
Right. No, I hear you. It's okay. That's all we can ask for right now.
Yeah.
So my first question, like what got you into like nerdy culture? Like did you grow up as a nerdy kid or was that like later?
Yeah, so I would say I always liked video games. I don't know how it came up, but me and my brother, we're close in age. He's 2 years older, and that
Mm-hmm.
was really the first kind of jump into nerddom. I would say I remember playing some Game Boy Color game. I think it was like Lion King of all things for the Game Boy Color. That was like my first system, and at some point we got a Nintendo 64. Don't know how this happened. Don't know if it was playing at any neighbors or friend's house, but
Right.
I remember it was very early, like literally 2000 or 2001, and which is actually when the GameCube came out. But I didn't really know that because we were just we were catching up. So I'm playing the 64. Um, don't remember when we I that was kind of like a hobby nerddom, but I would say that I also was always interested in math just as like a subject. So in school, I grew up doing better, let's just say, in like math. Science was cool, but math was always my strongest. Not as
Hmm.
good with reading and like in like social studies, though I could read well and I had a good, whether vocabulary, reading level. And I actually did
Right.
like
Yeah.
reading books for like leisure. So I like video games a lot, but there were also times where I could just get into like some good books, particularly more actiony. It depended. But anyway, I would just say that like I had a wide variety of interests that you could classify as nerdy. Some of it was just because it was easier to deal with, like with academics. I like math, and so that kind of, I guess, led itself to more nerd stuff. But I don't know.
Hmm.
I can't say that 100% that correlated with why I got more interested in things like video games. It just was kind of like a nice solace and a way of getting like
Right.
maybe lost in a story that you can actually control.
That's true. Yeah. Like I really enjoy like video games that are storytelling, like that have really great stories. Like Mass Effect was a huge
Mm.
favorite of mine, especially because you can port your character from like Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. It didn't really work from 2 to 3, and it just added to why Mass Effect 3 was just garbage. That's when like EA really took it over and just EA, like the inshitification of what EA does.
Sorry, the whatification?
Inshitification.
Oh, that's like
Inshitification.
the in-app purchases and stuff, or like, or just just a general.
It's so like that term is kind of used more for like um I guess social media, and how when stakeholders start taking over social media, there's like it starts getting worse. Like when a company goes public, or a company gets bought out or something. I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to be a tech company, but it usually happens. It's usually so like Twitter was a fun place, and then it got progressively, down the drain to hot garbage. And the same thing with Facebook. Like Facebook literally just has the audacity to just not show you your friends. Like that's that is so bad. And it just gets worse and worse. It's just like here's an ad, here's an ad, here's an ad, here's some junk, here's a meme, here's something. And like same thing with Instagram.
Mm,
Like, yeah, so like things so it's just when things just get progressively worse and worse and worse, and it's like who is this even for anymore? Like what is it that you're even trying to do?
got it. EA takes a lot of hits. I don't think I played a lot of their games, to be honest. Um, or maybe I have, but I just never followed them as an entity. But yeah, they're going through it.
Yeah, like they used to be good, but like I think they always had like an underlying like shittiness. Like one of my friends from college, I mean, this was, like over 10 years ago at this point when they were telling me this. It was I think it was like their uncle or something used to work for EA. They flew the uncle from somewhere on the East Coast to Texas to, I think, just open up a new building or train people or something. A whole big project. Maybe this could have been easily like 6 months to a year, and then just fired him after it was done. So I'm like, and this was well over 10 years ago. I don't know exactly when that happened. It happened, I believe, before I met my roommate. So, but yeah, it was a
Yeah,
long time coming with the. I don't know how EA is now, but I haven't. I don't really keep up with video games too much anymore.
yeah, that's fair.
Um, which fictional characters did you emulate or look up to when you were growing up?
Yeah. So emulate's hard because especially in a lot of the characters that I really followed were video game characters. Like I liked the stories. For instance, like Legend of Zelda, Link was one of my favorite characters. Now I'm not necessarily emulating Link, though I did like
Right.
archery. I remember in eighth grade we did an archery thing, and I was like, "This is cool," but it wasn't like I was like hardcore about to like learn how to seriously shoot arrows.
Right.
And I wasn't a huge movie buff, so I wasn't necessarily following like, oh, Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise type
Right.
characters. So it is kind of a challenging question because when I think about it, I do remember playing a lot of games, mostly Nintendo Smash Bros. Type games. Maybe I would try to like me and my brother would just like mimic characters.
Right.
Star
Yeah.
Fox 64 was like one of my favorite games, so we would quote a lot of like the Fox, Peppy Hair. We would quote a
Do
lot
a
of people.
barrel.
Do a barrel, of course, the classic. But in terms of like really emulating, okay. So I know that I read these books. One of them was called Alex Rider, like a
Hmm.
British teen spy who, well, basically his uncle is a spy and he gets recruited kind of against his will to be a spy. It's yeah, I mean, it was kind of a difficult circumstance, but he was sort of pressured into being a spy at like 14. And that was kind of cool. Now, I didn't necessarily try to do everything he was doing or anything. Like, he was learning all these martial arts, scuba diving, rock climbing, a lot of stuff that his uncle prepped him for unknowingly to make him a
Hmm.
spy. Well, the uncle on purpose, but Alex not so much knowing what his future was going to be. So I definitely thought that was cool. And I read that book around the time when I was in middle school. And another one was Bobby Pendragon, um, Pendragon series where this guy is traveling different worlds and kind of taken out of his main world and has to figure out how to save multiple. I never finished reading that book series, but I also kind of like that series, and I kind of like that these were like young. They at that time they would have been older than me, but like teenagers who had to figure out how to like just kind of from nothing learn how to like become something more. And
Yeah.
now that they were young men, they didn't seem to be like, now that I think about the word, they weren't really like problematic or whatever. So they were just
Hmm.
people who that seemed to be normal, like at least, they're flawed, absolutely. And they had
Yeah.
challenges, but they got through them. They had a good friend support systems, particularly Bobby Pendragon. Alex, I mean, he had some support, but he mostly was dealing with MI6 from the British intelligence, which isn't always the most warm and affectionate. But either way, it was just a cool story to read. And the last one is Artemis Fowl. That one was really cool. My brother
Hmm.
was big into it, then I got into it, and just this boy genius dealing with magical creatures. I would say he's probably like the one that was the most. I kind of read him a little later, but it was definitely a fun series to read as well. So I would say those are some of like the characters, and they're all young male characters, which probably is
Hmm.
on theme for this podcast. Um,
Yeah.
but am I trying to necessarily be them, dress as them? I wouldn't say
Well,
I
not.
really. I mean, I know
Well,
you probably aren't asking like that, but I do know some people who really, whether it's Harry Potter or Star Wars, and you're super into the fandom. I wasn't necessarily all of that, but I definitely liked the stories and where it could transport me in times that were just, you needed a bit of an escape. And video games were
right.
fun, but the books could be ironically more vivid
Right. Of
sometimes.
course. So, like, did any of the characters at least like inspire you, or did you admire any of the characters, or do you feel like any of like their personality traits like are kind of seen in you?
Well, I know one, the one I didn't mention, series of unfortunate events. The younger guy, the middle child Klaus, who
Okay.
I always was jealous of by a little bit because she could do these inventions, right? But Klaus just had books. He just read a lot and just happened to know really important things from books. And I thought that was really cool. And
Hmm.
so I would think of it, I think, when I was reading books, like, I wonder if one day, like maybe it was unconscious, but like maybe the things that I'm learning could come in handy in a life saving situation or just some other situation where you're learning random facts that could, I don't know, come into use somewhere. So I think like I could relate a bit to Klaus because I'm reading, and obviously I'm reading this book while
Hmm.
he's reading books sometimes to learn about whatever situation they're trying to all get stuck out of. Um, so I would say that maybe there was a little bit of inspiration there, but I already was reading, so it wasn't like I heard about this guy then started reading. But I think that was like a connection that I could kind of see.
Because y'all
Um,
were both readers.
yeah, we're both readers, and hopefully,
Gotcha.
if Count Olaf comes for me and my fortune, it'll get me out of some bad situations.
So in middle school and even high school, like were you a big reader like after school or during school, or like what else did you do after school?
I did. I read. I feel like it was sporadic. Like there were times where I was bigger. Like I would read more during the year. I think it usually ended up being like summertime in particular because of course you have school and stuff. And
Like did
I
you do
remember
like sports or anything at school or
I
anything else?
did. So not at first. I think my first year I attempted to do golf, but didn't last very long on that. My second to senior year, I did soccer, which was actually something growing up. Like when I was, let's say, elementary school up to
Mm.
sixth grade, I did soccer just kind of regularly through like the summer, whatever league. But then when I moved to where my parents live now in Southern Maryland, that was seventh grade, and I wasn't doing sports, which actually was probably a bit of a disconnect because even though I am more nerdy, I did like those outdoor activities, especially in the summer, and I didn't have that really. So then I think it did help to kind of take me back. You
Mhm.
know, it's more competitive in high school, but it did take me back to kind of a time where things were simpler. So I did soccer. That took over my summers because we had conditioning, but it was
Mhm.
twice a week. So it wasn't like I didn't have time to do other things. So I did still read. I had some summer reading programs that like I think my mom pushed me to do where you kind of had like a book club. That might have been more middle school actually, but I do remember these summer
Okay.
programs where we would go. You had certain books. They would give us books, or we would have to find them in the library. I think they gave them to us, and we gave them back. And so I learned some. There were some books that I had never read before that I actually got to see through that, and I was like, "Oh, this is super cool." Some I didn't really care for that much, but some I did. So I would say that I read, mostly fiction. It was for fun. I think by the time high school came around, like especially later in high school, it probably started to fall off. Um,
Mhm.
I remember still trying to keep up with some of those series like Alex Rider, but then at some point, I think after the last book, they have more books. I actually don't even know how many more, but when I read the last book that they had, it was cool. But then college came and stuff, so it was a hobby that I fell out of. But I definitely read. One quick story. I know that I was doing this summer program that my dad was helping to co-teach, like a STEM, kind of just like a math, science, and reading, kind of for like maybe late middle school, early high schoolers through
Is
sort
your
of a
dad in
family.
STEM as well?
Yeah, he was a professor at the time. I want to say he might have been in between. He was in between certain careers, but he was a math and physics professor.
Okay.
Because his PhD was in, I want to say like engineering, physics, material science, something in that realm. So I know that when he was doing this like summer program with kind of some family friends, I actually had a book. And I remember like we weren't getting teased for it, but at some point, I think me and my brother were talking about video games, and then these other guys were like, "Oh, I didn't think that you were really into video games. I thought you were like more just reading books like a nerd." I mean, I don't remember how he said it, but I was like, "That's interesting. Like playing video games, that's cool." But it was probably more talking about like Call of Duty and like NBA. But still, it
Mm.
was kind of interesting that like, oh, they didn't even know we play video games. Like, of course we play video games. Me and my brother grew up on video games, but because
Right,
we
yeah.
carried books around at this summer thing, it was like I guess they had the impression that we were just bookworms. And it's like, yeah, it depends on the context. Like if I'm out, I'm more likely to be reading a book. I used to have my Game Boy, but I think
Mhm.
I don't know. At some point when I got older, I think it just became easier to play or to read books. Or I just ran out of things to play and I didn't get like a DS, so I'm like I don't have anything new to play. Everything I'm playing is at home. I care more about my Wii,
Mhm.
um, which at that point was a little bit newer to me, like eighth grade onwards. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting balance, but it definitely fell off by late high school in terms of reading
Okay.
fiction.
Did you get more into nonfiction in high school?
No. Oh no. So I was still reading the fiction. And if I read any nonfiction, it would definitely just been like for class. But even then, I don't know if that's the case because if we read things for class, it was mostly fiction
Mm.
and poetry was there, but that's still fiction. I mean, you know, depending on how you want to classify it. But I wasn't reading like nonfiction until much later. And even then, I would not really consistently read them, but those kind of self help books or like books about society, you
Mm.
know, whether it's a War on Normal People, which admittedly still haven't read, but I've touched. or listened to part of it.
You know?
There are books like that, like informational books, like things
Right.
that are like
Yeah.
informational. That was like a post high school time when I started to get more interested. Things that I could either use to learn about something in society or think differently about something or better myself. Unfortunately, a lot of those books I've just bought and then they collect dust. But at
Yeah.
this point in
Yeah.
time, I'm not as much hyped about fiction. Like maybe I'll go back and finish some of those series that I used to be into, like Alex Rider, Pendragon. But
Hmm.
if I am going to read a book, I imagine it would be a book that could make me either more productive, since that seems to be, you know, self improvement is the move, growth and all that.
Have I? Yeah, I've read like one, maybe two self improvement books. I think I may have listened to one of them. I think it was like The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Mm,
That one was, it was pretty cool. I love The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Yeah, I tell everybody who I ever come across at some point to read that book. It's short. Chapters are short too. Sometimes the chapters are just like a paragraph. Like it's the book is really meant. It's essentially to for you to get up off of your ass and go and do the thing that you want to do. Cuz like we've all been there where we like if we're like interested in something, let's say guitar playing. You know, you read up on guitar playing, you watch a bunch of videos of people playing guitar, you read up on what's the best guitar to get, the most amazing guitar. Go like you look up maybe guitar classes near you, but you never actually go to one. You never actually buy a guitar or anything because you think that you need like the most amazing guitar on the planet just to start learning to play guitar when you could just get any old like rinky dink guitar and start. It's
right,
yeah, like $2,000 guitars are going to sound better, just like how $130,000 Lamborghini is going to drive better than a Toyota Corolla. But both cars will get you from A to B.
mm.
Um, anyone takes anything out from me from this podcast, this entire series is to read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
And I'm pretty sure I got that too. Like, there was that book, and there's another one. I don't remember if the War of Art has like a yellow cover or there's another one. Oh, that there might be a comedy secrets, comedy writing secrets.
Oh
Um,
yeah, the comedy writing secrets is yellow. Yeah,
yes,
that,
I got that one, and it's wild detail that I remembered there. But I just remember there was something visually like yellow, and I think I may have gotten the War of Art. I'll check. If I haven't gotten it, I'll definitely get it because I think that would be good inspiration too. Of like, there's a lot of just things like even if it's not all just like creative, there's a lot of things where getting up, doing certain steps, just you just have to do it. Like Shea
yeah.
LaBeouf, just do it.
not
Nike.
even not even Nike, Shia LaBeouf. Who was your first crush?
Had to have been. There were like these people I bothered a little bit in elementary school, but I don't know if I would say I had like a crush on them. But I think the first time I remember like really an actual crush where I like could feel some type of feeling, there was this girl Hannah from middle school, sixth grade. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I remember her. I feel like she had a friend too who I think might have liked me named Brooke, who I kind of was like, oh, she's cool, but I don't know. Then I moved. So after sixth grade, I moved from that part of Maryland, like 2 hours away to where my parents currently live in Southern Maryland. And that was like, there's pre social media, so there wasn't really a way to keep in touch. So I did find them later on Facebook.
Okay.
Um, and it was interesting though, because they both, I'm pretty sure they both, not like it matters, but they're both lesbians at this point. So I was like,
Oh,
okay,
oh.
well, okay, so that wasn't really gonna work out probably. And I'm pretty sure one of
Probably
them
not.
also
No.
transitions. I think one or was non-binary or something. So I was like, okay. So
Hmm.
it's just interesting because way back then you would never know. I mean, even
Right.
if you went to high school with them, sometimes those changes you don't know. Like I know someone who transitioned, but that's another conversation. But it's just weird because my first crushes were in a place where I couldn't even see them anymore because I moved, and I moved not a ton, but enough where I didn't have a straight like line of friends from elementary to high school. It was pretty jagged.
Oh. How,
Um,
why did you move so
my,
much?
well, I know we moved once in Salisbury, Maryland. That's like Eastern Shore near Ocean City. We moved once just because I don't know actually. Maybe we were only renting. That was the first house we lived in when we moved from we Missouri, where I was born. We moved to
Oh,
Maryland because my dad got a job at a university as a professor, and I guess our aunt was there. Maybe we also went because my mom's sister was there.
true. Yeah.
This is good questions. I think I'm gonna actually ask some of these to
I
family.
mean, I don't think it needs like too much thought as to why your family wanted to move out of Missouri, but
What was this 1999? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's. I
I
mean,
was
you'd
like,
be
when you said
surprised.
Missouri, I was like, oh, okay, that's the
Yeah,
answer. Gotcha.
there you go. Yeah, also like why so far, like all the way to Maryland, is interesting because it's not like they were in DC with the job, like a federal job. It was just
Hmm.
Maryland, and the furthest part of Maryland away from DC, like 2.5 or 3 hours even.
Okay.
And then when we moved to Southern Maryland, which is like 50 minutes from DC, so a lot closer, near PG County, which is like a black wealth, used to be the wealthiest black majority county in the country.
What is it now? Atlanta, or is
I
it
think it's
just?
Charles County, actually. Well, Waldorf, Maryland, which is where I went to high school. So
Hmm.
Charles County, I think now might be that, but I would have to look it up though because I don't know if it's just Waldorf as a town or if it's the whole county. Because
Okay.
a lot of Charles County is not very black, so I don't know if Charles County is majority black. Totally. Um, Maybe it is, but I'm
Okay.
not sure. But when we moved there, we moved again. So even like I know when we moved from middle school to Waldorf, that was because when we moved from Salisbury to Waldorf when I was in middle school, that was because my mom got a job after being a substitute teacher. She got full time
Nice.
teaching job, and so that was good. But it also meant we kind of split. So
Hmm.
um, my dad stayed with my oldest sister so that she could graduate high school because she was a
Okay.
senior, and my
Right.
dad was still a professor. Then my mom moved with me, my brother, and then my older middle sister. And so for like a year, we were like kind of separate, and then visit each other, um, which is a fun little 2 hour drive on every weekend. Usually they would come to us, but we did sometimes go to them. So that was
Yeah.
for a year, and so then they came and moved with us. But then at some point we moved again, still in Waldorf, but just a different area. So that's the point of all that is that I feel like I never really maintained like even if I liked someone, I wouldn't see them for that long because I probably only lived in one house for 3 years, like 4 years maybe. Um,
Hmm.
from what I can remember, yeah, that sounds about right. Seventh, eighth, ninth grade, sixth, fifth, fourth, third. No, that was even that was split. So I feel like I yeah no that was it. So I think I just lived in different houses for a while, different neighborhoods, different school districts. But yeah, sorry, I'm kind of going a little bit in detail for the question that you asked about having
Yeah.
first
By
question why we moved.
yeah. No, because that's interesting. Because and like that would have, I guess, kind of played into you not being able to have like close friends or at least even like close-ish acquaintances because you moved around a lot, or were you like quick to make friends and it wasn't too big of a deal?
Yeah, I could make friends. Like I feel like I was able to make friends fine.
I mean, like
I
you
got
seem
along.
like a friendly guy, so
Yeah, I got along with people. Sometimes I could be quieter, but I could open up. So
yeah.
it wasn't it wasn't like I was someone who was necessarily difficult. It just kind of it really was about vibes because I just felt like there were just sometimes people that just weren't that night. Like they could be nice, but sometimes they weren't. Like especially when I
Mm,
moved to Waldorf, and I feel like it was just a very different culture. You know, there was a lot more. I don't know. It was definitely just a lot more. Like it was kind of culture shock, like because it was just to say it bluntly, it was a lot more black people, and it was also a lot more
mm.
kind of like Jonin, which I don't even know if they use that term down. I feel like it's such
What?
a Jonin. It's like roasting or like I'm like well, kind of like the boy I'm about to cook you, but Jonin, like if you're Jonin on someone, you're roasting them, you're frying them. But like
Mm,
Jonin was like an older term, and it was a term I very very commonly said down there. So people would be Jonin, like oh you're and one time when I said it, someone was like I said it like later in high school or on my Facebook or college actually, and a friend was like I thought you were talking about Jonin, like the rank from Naruto, and I was like, no, boy.
The
I was
Jonin?
like, yeah, I was like, that is so funny because I never made that connection, but it's kind of spelled the same because Jonin is
Oh wow,
or
that's
it might have an O, Joan, but in any case, it was just like, yeah, like it was just different. So I did get to meet friends, but I feel like I had to tread carefully, because I just didn't necessarily talk the same, sound the same, kind of have the same interests in some ways, but I could get along with people fine enough, and no matter what, there was those connections, like you know,
mm,
especially people like video games, you know. Reading, I feel like I didn't bond as much with people over specific books, but if you liked reading, then that helped. Though usually that was more my female friends, whatever. You know,
mm,
still an interest. And then I don't know, like there was also sports. Though at first no, because I didn't play sports when I first moved in seventh grade. But by the time
okay,
I got to high school, I had some friends who actually encouraged me, like, yeah, you should try for the soccer team because we did it in gym. And I was like, oh, yeah, this would be a good idea. So
okay,
I feel like there was always something, like there was always some interest, whether it's music, because I played the violin pretty consistently. So
right, yeah.
I was always doing orchestra no matter what since like sixth grade. So that was a nice constant that also let me have some kind of friends, somewhat.
You mentioned female friends. Was it easy for you to make friends with girls?
I could get along with them, but I didn't necessarily have deep friendship. I would say that like maybe eighth grade onward, it did start to become that way. Even sixth grade, I remember having like those one girl who really was one of my closer friends, and she was good friends with the girl who had a crush on it. But me and her were cool too. So I remember always having an easy enough time. Like it wasn't like I was friends necessarily with the most like I don't know how to say it, but like the
You,
most
you're
popular, attractive girls. I wasn't like I don't know. It's weird because I wouldn't have thought of myself in this circle with like all the girls or whatever. Like if anything, I'm just trying not to attract attention because I don't know. I had some like weird experiences where I kind of felt like I don't know if I would say I was being picked on, but I just kind of felt like I don't want to necessarily feel judged, right,
mm,
by women. And so I wasn't necessarily going out of my way, but I did have friends maybe who were also kind of nerdy, also kind of awkward, or just whatever. Maybe some of them would like give me a hard time, but it was more friendly. So I could make friends easily with them. And so that was fine. I just kind of did my own thing. I was a really quiet kid in high school in particular. And
mm.
so, and I performed well academically, which typically you're going to see a lot more women.
Yeah, that's
I,
true.
I remember there was like in the top 20 of our class, there was like 17 women for three guys. So if I'm in a lot of like these AP classes, you have smart guys, of course, but
Yeah.
then you just have so many women. So I feel like it kind of became natural that I had some friends in these high
Yeah.
achievement classes, orchestra, like the extracurriculars that were not sports. You happen to see different, like a lot of women, a lot of girls. And so
Mhm.
it wasn't hard, and because I also was like, nice, whatever. Like it's a weird thing to say because it's like you don't want to say, "Oh, I'm a humble guy," but like
Nice guy.
I'm a nice guy. Yeah, on the side, I've thought about jokingly having like the nice guys podcast where you talk about navigating the world as a quote unquote nice guy, and the challenges of
Like
that.
you're
I feel
like
like
oh,
it's like
like you're like legitimately like what a nice guy is supposed to be, but then like kind of taking the term nice guy back.
yeah. It's like let me kind of like be facetious, play off of the tropes and the stereotypes. Kind of like if you're a girl and you're making like a yeah, like pretty privilege, or like if you try to talk about, oh my gosh, it's so hard being such an attractive girl. So I feel like
Like
I feel,
it's like oh I like guys more than women. Like I like hanging out with the guys. You know I'm a
oh yes,
guy's girl kind of thing. Like I always felt like I just had like more guy friends than women friends because of like I guess like my interests like anime and video games and all that. And also like I'm the last of seven, yeah, but like my three older brothers are closer to me in age than my three older sisters because it goes three sisters, three brothers, and then me.
mm,
Um, so and I had during the holidays when I'd hang out with my cousins, like even like my male cousins, I was closer to in age than like my cousins who were women who were girls. So like it was still sort of the case. Like it was always just kind of like awkward, like feeling. I don't know, because like my mom would always be like, "Oh, girls got to be like ABC, XYZ," and I was just like, I mean, I could probably be like B at best, Like
Mm-hmm.
I was never really like a quote unquote like girly girl, and it took me a very long time to realize like that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And like women aren't like secretly judging you, and yeah, I'm just way too freaking hard on myself about things. I don't know if this is the case with African parents. Probably, yeah, but like with Caribbean parents, especially like Jamaican parents, like they grill you so hard on your looks and just how
Mm.
you well looks and how you present yourself. A greeting during the holidays is you look fat.
Right.
You got fat. you know, it's like you gotta say
So,
these things, you gotta talk like this, you gotta do this, and it's like, do I have a personality? Am I
mm,
allowed to have one? So yeah, like it took me like just a while to just be totally comfortable with like myself and how I present myself,
yeah.
like how I want to present myself. It's like, yeah, I don't really get my nails done. Mainly because it's just like really distracting because like I never do. So when if I'm typing on a keyboard or using a
Yeah.
mouse, I'll be like, oh, oh, because
Yeah. That's so funny.
I was like, well, I need to work. But yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. It with because I was like in honors and AP classes as well, so it was always just predominantly women. I guess I always thought of it in the perspective of like being one of the few black people in the class. That for you that
Mm.
wasn't the case because you were in a predominantly black county.
Yeah, it was like 40%. So I looked it up maybe like late high school just to like know it for myself, and it was 40%. I really thought it was majority because the way I would look in the lunchroom and I was like, this is the sea of black people. Um,
Yeah.
Especially like if I anyway, that's I'm not gonna do friendly fire, but let's just say if I'm trying to go in line for the lunch, bodies would just suddenly appear cutting the line, and I'm like, where are all these black people coming from? Where are these ninjas coming from cutting the line? And so I really was like, we are a black school. But then I looked it up and it was like only 40%. But I mean, still, that's
Yeah, that's
pretty
very high.
that's
Yeah.
very high. So we
Yeah.
were, and then 56 white. So like we had just a nice 4% sliver of anything else. So for us, it was just you have black, you have white. And so,
Mm.
yeah, I think when it came to my AP classes, yeah, you did have maybe some divided as well of like, okay, you are actually this racial thing is real. Like you would see a lot more of the black kids in like, I mean, honors was mixed, right? You could see honors in either, but if you were in like A level classes, which was like the lower than honors, then that would probably be a lot of black. There were definitely some white kind of alternative type kids too, but like,
Mm.
um, it was when you got to your APs, it was still pretty diverse. It was diverse, but like you definitely had more white people as a percentage. So it was kind of interesting to like see how that worked. But as also, I guess
Mm-hmm.
gender wise, I don't know because there were still plenty of guys in these classes. It's just I would remember my friends. Like I had friends who oftentimes had their own squad, and like my woman friends, my
Mm.
girlfriends who
Mm-hmm.
were together. So I think looking back, I could look and say, oh wow, we maybe were outnumbered. But I also just knew my friends and like their friend group, so I kind of knew them, and it wasn't like amorphous. Oh my gosh, there's so many girls here. It's like, oh yeah, this girl and them, we're all
Yeah, it's just
here.
like these are your friends.
These are my friends or the people at least who I have some relation with, and I've seen
Right.
them, known some of them since eighth grade because seventh and eighth grade was like when I finally got into a consistent pattern of knowing people. Though when I went to high school, small tangent, I went to like my zone school, but I applied for a special magnet high school, which I got waitlisted for.
Okay.
My brother actually went to that school, so me and my brother went to different high schools. But people I knew from middle school, some of them went to that magnet school. Most of us probably went to our zone school, but it was interesting because so like there were people who I like lost contact with again because of that. So then from ninth grade onwards, people who I guess I who continued from seventh to eighth grade, and then anyone I met in like ninth grade onwards, you would just kind of see them. And so like looking back at it from demographic level, you're like, oh yeah, I guess these are how the trends broke. But I just kind of knew them. I was like, oh yeah, these are the people I've been in honors classes with, and we've been in the same types of stuff with.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, I would notice like there's a lot more black people than just these people, especially when I came to graduation. And I'm like, oh snap, there are all these people who I didn't even really know existed, or I heard their names maybe on roll call or in announcements. Um, but anyway, that's just like a weird, like kind of just an interesting observation of like the race thing that you mentioned is also true, but it wasn't the case of me being the only one. It's just that it kind of,
Right.
if anything, it's the reverse. It kind of became there were less of us black people for sure in those high level classes, but as a population in the school, definitely we weren't alone. Um,
Yeah. Like, would you say that there would be like more than 10 black people in your classes?
yeah, I mean, class, especially like depending on the class size. Like okay, some classes no. Like if I'm thinking of like my AP
Mm.
Calc class, my AP Physics. I mean, there was still a handful for sure, but it could be like four, five. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think like if for AP Spanish, yeah, there probably were. Oh my gosh, that class. But anyway, that's another story. That class definitely had more women in it. Um, my AP Lang class had plenty of women, but I don't remember how many black women. But that was weird because we had seniors and juniors in that class. And so I took it as a junior. And so there were seniors that I met, but most of them
Mm.
weren't black. They were mostly white women.
Okay. Yeah, because like with me, like it was like honors and AP classes. It,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would like
Like,
it would like be like three black people, including myself. Like yeah, like maybe like in all of honors AP, like my graduating class that I knew of, maybe 10 in total. I don't. There was definitely never 10 black honors AP kids in a class together.
mm,
No.
oh, snap. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Like, it was probably just 10 in total that I know of. Like, I'm sure there were some that we just never crossed paths for whatever reason somehow.
yeah.
I like in high school, no, that wouldn't have been. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. So like
Mm,
that's really cool that you were able to experience that because it is very like like thinking back, it's very othering. I mean, like my school, like my high school is very diverse. I would have to say, like there was a lot of black kids, there was a lot of Latino kids, there was a lot of white kids, there were a lot of, well, not really a lot of, but there was a decent amount of Asian and Indian students, like just in the honors and AP classes. Like it just wasn't really the case. Like I don't even think I really could have dated if I tried.
mm.
Usually the guys that were into me were like it was just like yeah, no, yeah. Like were you able to like have a girlfriend in high school? Did you have a girlfriend?
No. This is my confession to the world. I actually never had a girlfriend. Um, and I think
Oh
even on like our TMC stream, I've probably like hinted or mentioned that I never had like a real relationship, but it's really weird just to say out loud because it's like so. I feel like it's very abnormal, but I
no,
never had a
I
girl.
like dude, my first boyfriend is my current boyfriend. Like
Okay,
yeah, yeah, no, I know that feeling. I know
you
exactly how you feel.
okay? Yeah, fair. And yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's it's just as a guy too. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess there's pressures on both ends with the genders, but like as a guy,
Okay.
it's like, what are you doing? Like, I guess I feel like not that I get like asked this by other guys, but I just feel like societally, maybe in my made up mind, I feel like the
Yeah.
pressure could be like the wow, how have you been single this whole time? You haven't like tried, or like do you just suck as a guy and you're not you're everyone's rejecting you? No, not like I really literally think that, but I kind of feel weird about being like, oh, I've just never dated. Well, why is that the case? And then if I
Mhm.
am gonna date, being like a grown man, you're kind of trying to figure things out. There's common sense, but there's a lot of things you might not know, and so it's always a little intimidating too. Of like, well, I haven't done kind of like when it comes to like maybe intimacy, and if you've never done anything, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, you don't want. I mean, you're gonna at some point, have your first, but like a lot
Mm.
of people are not virgins, and so if you are,
Yeah.
then it's kind of like you feel intimidated because it's like, oh my gosh. So, but honestly, that's a bit more superficial. So when it comes to the relationship part, it's like that's so much deeper. Of like I've never gone through this, and
I agree.
it's a lot of girls, especially if they've been through long-term relationships, if they've been through just disaster related whatever, they kind of don't want to have to maybe teach someone how they should be loved or how to. Granted, I could just be reading too many Instagram posts or too many like seeing too many things online, but there are a lot of people who don't necessarily want to be told or they don't want to have to tell a guy how to treat them, and so that also
Yeah,
can help.
that's that like those women are like don't take advice from that shit. Like you got to tell your partner like no matter your gender, no matter who you date, like you got to tell your partner like what you like no one can read minds to my knowledge. Um so like you got to communicate, you got to like speak up, you got to talk. Like that's been one of the biggest things with with me and my current relationship, my first relationship, my only um is communication. I've had friends who like I have friends who are poly. I have friends who are like, practice like ethical non-monogamy. I have friends who are like religious. I have friends who are just any sort of spectrum of like people and relationships, and like they always like to say like, oh yeah, communication is key, like it's like very like stereotypical and all that, but it's also really difficult
Mm,
because you kind of hope that they will just know, but at the same time it's like I don't even think I know what exactly is bothering me in this moment, or like what is it that's so it's like how do I even verbalize it? I just know that this is a thing that bothers me. I know that this is an issue that needs to be resolved in some case, but I don't know what it is. So like if anyone's saying like, oh, someone should just know, then they are asking for issues in the relationship. Cuz like they're asking for just I feel like that's just like another way of just wanting drama in a relationship, honestly.
my goodness, yeah.
Cuz you're just going to hold on to resentment cuz it's like how dare he not know? It's like, well, how can he know? Do you even know? Like do you know really? But
That's good.
there are like instances where the other partner isn't hearing you, like that's like because like they're doing A but you're only noticing B and you don't really realize like A is a good thing and you're just so focused on the B that isn't occurring.
Mm-mm.
So like that was literally a conversation I had my boyfriend and I had like 2 nights ago. Because like he pointed out something and I was just like, oh yeah, yeah, that's true. My bad. That, like yeah, that's true, that is a good thing. So it was like like I want to say humble, it was just like a, oh, this is what they mean by communication, because like they want to make it sound like it's so easy, but it's not. It's more
Yeah.
than just like asking your significant other what they want for dinner and them having a response. Like there's way more to it. But I
Yeah.
find it interesting that cuz I never really thought that men had like these societal pressures. Like I always felt like maybe because then this is just my opinion, I'm not sure. Like I always felt like with women, if women are single, it's just seen as like a lot worse.
Mm,
I don't know. I've never been a guy in conversations with like an uncle or like guy friends or anything. So like is it like you kind of like try to skate around the topic if it
like when
comes up?
talking with other men, or like talking, let's get around the topic with who.
I guess that it could be anyone. It could be
So,
anybody.
yeah, I guess it just doesn't come up necessarily. Like if people ask, "So, who was your first?" Like, when was your? I mean, sometimes you'll see questions maybe at certain game nights or something that's like your something about an ex or what's the longest between your last relationship. I don't think I've really had to be the one to answer some of these, but I'm like, oh yeah, that would kind of out me as not having had a relationship, and or maybe I'll just use a situation because there are some situations that emulated parts of having a girlfriend, but
Yeah.
it wasn't going to necessarily go to that level. So sometimes that could work out. Like one time I was telling a good friend of mine, we were, I guess she was talking about someone that she had been talking to, messing around with, and I was talking about someone who I actually thought I was going to be in a relationship with, didn't. And
Mm.
she was like, for all intents and purposes, that's your ex. And she was like, I'm shocked that you even still have like a good friendship with that girl. And I was like, yeah, there was a lot of craziness going on with that, with of that. Just there was
Yeah,
a lot going
yeah.
on in that situation at that time, but that was a long time ago. That was like 2017, 18. So
Okay.
I was like, and when I was talking to my friend, it was probably like 2020, 2021 ish. So I was just like, time passes and, we move on. But, so I'm like, can I call the person the ex? I guess. Like, we kind
Yeah.
of had enough of a relationship where it was. And at one point, we actually were living in the same apartment. And so there was a lot going on. We were in the same apartment as roommates. We were like
Oh,
actually
okay.
on different leases, two different floors.
Oh, like
But
you were in the same complex, but not like the same unit.
it was like a house. So I guess technically two floors and a basement of a laundry. So I
Oh,
was on the
okay.
top floor. She was on the bottom floor, but by herself. So there was like really only four of us in that house. Instead of like six. So I mean, and we were all friends. We were all part of the same org. Um, and so like literally executive board on the same org. So we were
Mm.
involved. There was a lot of interconnectedness going on.
Yeah.
And so, but I guess when terms with societal pressure, just generally, I would say it's not as much of like, oh, you're single and someone's going to say something about it. I mean, maybe if you're going to date, people might wonder, like, are you, is the dating pool good? Like, are you a good member of this pool because you're single in your 30s? But I would say I don't feel that pressure. It's more so that if I'm going to get into a relationship, the idea of like, you should really know what you're doing and take charge and lead. And that is always kind of what trips me up because it's like, well, I haven't really had to before. I mean, I've led in other situations, but being the youngest, the four also hasn't helped. So I'm like, okay, youngest sibling, though I have led in like an academic setting, being a TA, being a grader. That was definitely probably some of the most authoritative moments I've had. Even in my career, I've always been on the younger side and always on the
Mm.
newer side. So I feel
Yeah.
like the idea of leading when it comes to like a relationship has always been a little intimidating
Why
because
do you
it's like,
think you need to lead and take charge in a relationship?
again, maybe it's just seeing too much stuff online, but I feel like the people want a guy because I feel like if as a guy you aren't setting some kind of direction or tone, then a situation can kind of become aimless if you're not sort of giving the signals of what you want to have. Like if you're talking to someone, if you ask someone
Mm.
out, if you express some type of interest, and you're not making more moves to make things, I don't know, more official, or even without putting a label on it right away, at least setting a cadence, taking, setting up the dates, having phone calls and video calls. Like, I just feel like if you're just kind of there passively, it'll just kind of die out because the women
Oh,
seem to be
okay.
waiting for, they're waiting for some kind of like they're not probably going to chase unless you just happen to be a really bold woman, or you're someone who just happens to be that type. But
Mm.
generally, it's like this person asked me out or they seem to have my interest in some way. What's gonna go? Like what's gonna happen? Like what's gonna come of this is gonna
Okay.
be dependent on what they're doing,
So
what we're doing.
okay, so this
But yeah,
this is like the beginning, like courtship you're talking about in terms of.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. I thought you were talking about like in the relationship, just like I don't know. I mean, I know that some people, like a lot of like some people do want, like some women like do want like the man to, I guess, like lead and take charge like all throughout the relationship and all that. Um, Personally, I'm not that type of woman. Because I've just been kind of doing whatever the hell I wanted to do my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So like, a guy is just like saying like you can't do that. I'm like ninja, who are you? Like, what? But yeah, like it is nice to know that like a potential partner can make things happen, can plan. Like that's an attractive thing for sure because it's especially with online dating, which is a disease in and of itself.
I guess a
It's
disaster.
it's just a train wreck. Um, it's good to know when somebody's like wanting something that's at least set in stone. It doesn't necessarily have to be serious, but it's like, all right, do you want to meet in person? If this is like an online dating situation, it's like, what kind of food do you like to eat? Have you heard of this restaurant? They serve this kind of food that you like to eat. Would you want to, go out like Thursday night at 7? It's a little bit low pressure because you have work on Friday. You're probably not going to be there for, it's like you kind of have like an out if things
Mm,
kind of go wrong. Like when I was dating, I would try to date between like Sunday night to Thursday nights because I didn't want to waste like a Friday night on a shitty date and,
mm.
a Saturday at all. Like just meeting some man and it's just a waste of time and he doesn't ask me a single question because I've done that way too many times and I'm like, why don't y'all know how to ask questions? Why just take a genuine interest in the person in front of you? You don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like definitely like in the courting stage. Definitely I guess like kind of take charge in that way. And as I've also have like an ex maybe too, even though I was not in a serious relationship until now. So I totally get that. Your friend's right. I agree. Like because it just becomes so much easier just describing that person as an ex instead of being like, well, this person that was like this thing and like I kind of dated and I don't know what it was. Like we held hands in public, but like
Oh,
you
stop.
know, like it's like we kissed in public, we held hands. Like I met his mom, but it wasn't that. Apparently, it wasn't serious.
Oh, yeah, snap.
I may or may not be projecting. Were there any like cringy, like quote unquote masculine things you did when you were younger?
I mean, I guess it is interesting. Like, I remember there were times where this would have been probably could have been Facebook, but probably could have also been Snapchat, where I would like have my workouts. I wasn't a regular workout, but like I would sometimes do my strength, go to the gym, try to lift, or really just do stuff on the machines, and maybe I would have some pose, not like a literal like bicep, but maybe kind of like my arms out like this. Maybe I'm holding on to something, and it does kind of show a little something. And I would
Okay.
take a pic, and it was. I don't know if it was that cringy, but sometimes I would look because I know one person even commented and was like, "What is that pose?" Because I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, I'm just doing something.
I'm
Like I'm not
sorry.
like I was just like I'm just doing something. Like if I could find one, I'll send it. But I'm like, I don't think it's that bad. Like it's not like the teenage or middle school selfie pics that are so notorious. I feel like I didn't do a lot of that, but I don't know. That might have been a thing. I feel like I didn't have a lot of like, oh my gosh, I really need to prove that I'm some kind of man. Like, I don't know. I wasn't walking around shirtless. I mean, obviously, in my own house, that's whatever. But like, it's not like I
Yeah.
was at the beach just trying to like. I don't know. Like, it's actually a good question, but I don't think I have like a lot of like signals that I was like sending out, like bat signals of like I am very much a man. But maybe like wearing those like gym shirts, those athletic, I forget what you call the sleeveless shirts, like the
Okay.
sleeveless kind of like,
Like the tanks.
yeah, the tank. Oh, thank you. So wearing those kind of tanks, like like usually like the Under Armour or whatever. I mean, they are comfortable. They do work out, but I mean, it's kind of nice to also sometimes show if there's any kind of
Yeah.
progress.
Hey,
So
yeah, for sure.
I'd
For
say it's
sure.
not an extra. Well, that's probably the closest I can think of was
Okay.
something
Okay.
like
I mean, I'm a firm believer if you got it, flaunt it.
yeah.
So, if you were looking good, then show it.
Boom.
um, did you have any like cringy beliefs back in the day and like what made you grow out of it or let it go?
I mean, I just remember thinking like sometime in the high school, I was like, man, I really have like learned everything that I could learn, and like I've learned the things, and I know like how well it's supposed to work. Like this is probably like it's junior year going to senior year. I don't know what I even thought. Like I don't know why I thought that I knew anything. Like, but I was just like, yeah, kind of understanding like this is just what you're supposed to do in the world, and like, yeah. But I mean, it's not like I thought, oh my gosh, I know more than the adults or I know more than my parents. It was just I thought I felt like things made sense. And now that I just turned 30, I'm like, things make even less sense, I think.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like things
yeah,
make
Toby.
less sense
Yeah, like
the more that you get to know things, the less things make
yeah.
sense.
I mean, I think it was Red Hot Chili Peppers said, "The more I see, the less I know."
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Um,
but
so
yeah, it's true.
that's probably one. Like, you know, um, I don't know if I had many like just societal like beliefs. Like I kind of know how that where that question can go to, like whether it's red pillish type of stuff. Because I think about like what are like belief systems or things that I just assumed about the world that I you know that I would take back, and I don't know because I feel like I was pretty like generally easygoing about things, even things that I didn't necessarily agree with. I mean, I definitely used to think that the idea of like if you use drugs at all at any point, you like are probably on a fast track to your life going nowhere. And I feel
Yeah,
like I still wouldn't. Well, there's multiple reasons why I don't use drugs, but like even marijuana, which here and there I've touched, but because of
yeah,
government work, I really don't mess with. I
fair,
feel like
fair.
I just know people who are high functioning in different ways where I'm like, okay, if I ever thought that like doing drugs of any kind is just a death sentence, it's like that's definitely something that I don't agree with because there's levels to this. Particularly if it's more natural. I'm not advocating people do like I mean, there's certain things that you really probably should never do, like crack, meth, and some other drugs, but like
Yeah,
heroin, like please. But there's people who are functioning in other ways, and while it's not my go-to, I can see a life where you're just that's just something that you do, especially if
yeah,
it's
like
something
casual. Yeah,
natural. So I think that partly maybe just growing up in a more Christian, traditional African household, there were things that I definitely just thought were like no like non-starters, and now I'm like a little more like okay with it, and I have friends who've done different things and very very successful, very smart, don't seem to
hmm
be destroying their life. So those are just a few examples of maybe some beliefs. I mean, I don't know if they're all cringy, but like they're at least
it's
maybe
kind of cringy. Yeah. Oh, the
it's
ones that you just yeah. But go on,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So
No, that was interesting. Like you got from from like junior to senior, you're like I know everything.
yeah, I was just like, the world is like this makes sense. The life makes sense now. You just academics and work, but I'm like, I haven't even gone to college yet. Like, what's happening right
Right?
now? Didn't even have a major. What's happening?
um, what was the defining low moment in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, there's a few, but I can go with my grad school. I just brought this up to my mom for
Mm,
Mother's Day because when I was in grad school and I was like getting the worst grades I probably had gotten in a long time,
mm,
and it wasn't even just like the classes being harder. I feel like having a lot more time on my hands, I didn't know how to handle it. Doing classes that were smaller, like I had less credits, and I just didn't know how to kind of handle all that free time and just figure out a way to focus. So I kind of was at the point where I could have like failed out effectively. And this is like a PhD program, so literally I was in a PhD program at 21 years
oh,
old. I felt like I was very like I had done so much to get there, and honestly, even my senior year, I had a lot of lows. And part of like I'll stick with the grad school part now, but when I remember getting certain grades and some highs, some lows, but then really just not wanting to share, like I didn't want to tell my parents about like my grades, which during undergrad was never an issue. Even bad
mm,
semesters, I could just say like, yeah, this is what I got. But in grad school, I was like, I'm getting like literally CC. I think one semester I had like a C minus, C minus, and an F. I was like, what is my life right
ooh,
now? I was like,
ooh.
and the F was like so weird. The reason why I was an F though, I think, was because you can't get lower than a C minus as a grad student. So you no D, no
Oh, so just went some straight from C minus to F. But damn, yeah,
But
I'm
also,
sorry.
depending on how it went, I may have gotten an F. I don't know. I may have just gotten an F, but I think I could have at least pulled out a D if it was undergrad. And honestly, some of those C minuses probably should have been lower, but they were just like, we're just going to make you pass so that you don't fail out. And so my parents, I know, gave me advice about like saying my mom was saying like, you're a smart young man. You did very well. Whether it was your SATs, your APs, and she was saying how
Mm,
like, you've never I don't know. I can't remember exactly how she phrased it, but she was just like, you, even if this isn't the path for you, even if this isn't working out, this doesn't take away from the intelligence that you have. And so I kind of became more okay with the idea of, okay, if I don't finish this program, I felt like a bit of a failure because I was in a program in undergrad, a scholarship that was elevating black. It could be anybody, but they started as black men and just
Mhm.
underrepresented groups overall into STEM to get PhDs, so just kind of specific. And I was like, let's do it. So even though it wasn't
Yeah.
my passion, I was like, well, let's do it. I didn't want to like be a, I don't know, I didn't want to be a disappointment, I guess, to like people who I've been a mentor for and stuff. So I felt like I really need to do this, but I just didn't have the passion for it. I didn't have the focus. I wasn't doing what I needed to do. And so I started to, I guess, just become okay with the idea of, and obviously this is good. Like it sounds like so sad to talk about it because it's like, I'm going to get a master's paid for. Like that's great. And I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
what, 23 when I graduate? Like that's really good. But
It
I
is. It's
just,
phenomenal.
yeah, like it actually is kind of crazy thinking of it. But I just at the time did not feel really proud of a lot. It was kind of a mental low, and I definitely was more into other things. Like I got into Nesby. I kind of was like more into some of the social cultural stuff. I feel like I was getting more interested in politics. There was just a lot of other things that I cared more about. I think, at least in my own interest, and they were distractions, honestly, but I didn't have a way to balance. So anyway, wrapping up the story, I think like when I graduated, I got the chance to master out, as they call it, so I could graduate with the masters. Um,
Oh.
and I was like, good, because that would give me the chance to wrap up this degree. But it did mean I had to do more work to kind of fit everything into the one semester. But I got through it. I got advice,
Mhm.
I tried to get mentorship where I could, talk to people openly about it, feeling how I felt kind of almost ashamed of not finishing this. And one person, like the dean of grad students, she mentioned how she apparently had been in a PhD program that she never finished, and she was the dean of graduate students. And so, and she was a good ally, like white woman, but she was a good ally to like BGS or Black Grad Student Association and other groups. So I was starting to meet with her like I don't know if it was every few weeks, and we would try to find a plan of just like how can I discuss like very obvious things. I was like, okay, well, what am I doing during the weekends? I don't do any work. Like maybe because I just feel so burnt out from the week, and so
Right. Yeah.
I would just like do I don't know stream or just do nothing on the weekends. And so I was like, okay, step one, do something. Let me go to campus on a Sunday at least and just do something. And so that
Okay.
mentally helped to get ready for Monday because I'm like I'm actually doing some kind of work during the weekend and not feeling
Mhm.
like overwhelming myself during the week. And I was a TA, which became harder because I wasn't a TA my first year. So I kind of
Mm.
wasted my first year. Then I have that new responsibility in New Year's, and I'm trying to deal with getting the master's. So that was a bit of a low, but by the time I got through my master's program, it was getting a lot better. Like I was making more headways. I was being more honest, trying to get counseling, though there wasn't really therapy in a traditional sense, but I was trying to at least get mentorship where I could. And so I was able, hopefully I answered everything. Cause I know you were like, what's the low? And I guess, how did I come out from the low? Um,
Yeah. It sounds like yeah.
Reevaluate, being more honest with myself, I guess, and trying to share my experiences with other people. I didn't talk to as many people as I could have. And I still feel like I kind of dipped like a thief in the night, but I think I talked to enough people that I was able to kind of make good game plans and not feel like I'm carrying this weight all by myself.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's um. Because I know that like what university did you go to? It was in New York, right?
Rensselaer, RPI, so Rensselaer Polytechnic. So it's like near
Yeah.
the capital, Albany, New York.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
And you said like that's where like the creator of Moderna vaccine went to, right? Or was did she
Oh,
come?
I think she'll Kizmeki, Kizzy Corbett.
Yeah.
She actually went to my undergrad. The one who like worked with Fauci. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Kismet, Dr. Corbett, who helped was a key scientist behind the COVID vaccine in
Right.
general. She went to UMBC in the program that I was in, the Meyerhoff program, which was the one to get Black people in particular to PhD, MD, PhDs in different
Okay.
STEM fields. So she was, I don't know what year she was, but she definitely was well before I graduated.
Right. Right. Right.
Probably
Right. No, I
years.
I guess because I know that like you went to some like the universities that you went to were very like not easy to get into is what I'll say. Like I guess like
Oh,
the best way to, because like in Florida there's so many universities that there are some that are just very easy to get into. I mean,
I
I
see.
guess like I don't. So like I know that pretty much every other state that's not really the case. So
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, maybe it's relative because UMBC I've heard is relatively easier to get into, but it's harder. Like when you're in UMBC, they call it like an honors university in Maryland, and they kind of go harder for certain classes that they probably don't need to. Like classes like not to denigrate them, but if you're taking like psychology or econ, you might be better off taking that at like a community college and transferring it. Because if you take it just to take it, thinking that it's going to be an easy social science credit, you're going to be like they're going to be going hard in the paint for this class for no reason. Like they're like really, really going in on these classes. Like I mean, not all my electives were like that, but I've definitely heard that was this, and then University of Maryland, College Park, like the Turtles, the Terrapins,
right.
they're the big University of Maryland,
Yeah.
and they are much harder to get into. But I've heard that once you're in, some of the classes just aren't as hard. Um,
Hmm.
it's not like a party school per se, but it has more of that culture, and so it's weird. Like UMBC might still be harder than maybe some of these Florida schools in terms of admissions, but a lot of people could get in. Like there were people who went to the school because they could not get into their first, second, third, fourth, fifth school.
Gotcha.
RPI,
Gotcha.
sorry,
So, no, I'm saying gotcha. Gotcha. Like
yeah,
I know that like UF University of Florida is. It hurts me to say this, but I have to. It's the hardest university to get into in the state of Florida.
dang,
Um, I think that it was at one point called the Ivy League of the South. I don't know if it still is, but I know it's still like the hardest university to get into in Florida. I went to Florida State,
mm-hmm.
which is a better school than UF, but UF and Florida State are rivals.
Yeah,
And University of Central Florida (UCF), like it was weird because it's like if FSU wasn't taking in as many students, UCF would, and if UCF wasn't taking in as many students, then FSU would. So
um,
I when I was graduating high school, it was the year that UCF was like deferring students, so they weren't really like trying to accept students. So I was deferred, and that's like one of the reasons why I went to Florida State because it's like, well, I got into Florida State, so might as well just go there. Um, I later got into UCF. Like it was funny because I remember the letter that they sent me was like, "Oh, well, we want to see more like grades and stuff from you," and I was like, "Well, screw that." um, but then they later accepted me like towards the end of like my senior year. I was like, "Yeah, no,
uh,
I'll just go to Florida State." um, and UCF was my first pick because it's only like 3 hours away from South Florida, like which is like where I grew
mm,
up.
yeah, right.
Um, so it was like, oh yeah, that's just right up the street. Florida State's all the way in Tallahassee, which is 7 hours, like 6 7 hours. So it was a hike, but I
Uh,
loved it there. Um,
good.
but yeah, so like I didn't want to like say like these universities were. I just assumed like universities outside of the state of Florida are just harder to get into than
Mm,
except for like like I would say UF, FSU, UCF, maybe even USF in Tampa, but like all the other universities like UNF is easy to get into, FAU, Florida Atlantic University is easy to get
okay.
into.
What about
UW.
FIU, Florida International?
Um
That's actually in Miami. Wow.
yeah, yeah, that is in Miami. That's I'm trying to remember. I think it's relatively easy to get into. It's I would
Mm,
say it's kind of like on par with FAU, I want to say. It might be a little bit more difficult. Because I know a lot of people, probably from all over the country, all over the world, try to go to FIU because it's in Miami. And it's not
yeah.
University of Miami, which is a private university.
Oh, I see.
And yeah, so that's like a little bit more difficult to get into. I didn't bother applying because I didn't want to spend out of state money in state.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would just be annoying.
Right, yeah. So I just kind of assume like every like Because I just haven't really know
Wow.
what.
Sorry, I was looking up the acceptance rate. I just don't know. I don't have a good grasp on what an acceptance rate looks like for universities. So
Mm.
seeing that like Florida State's 25%, I'm like, whoa, is that normal for universities to be like 1 in 4, or University of Miami at 18.9? That is insane.
Is that like high, low? I'm not sure.
That should be really low. I mean, well, this is like the general overview. I don't know if this is from one website. I hope it is. I think they're pulling it from acceptancerate.com. And so Palm Beach and Atlantic is like 94.7%. I don't even know
Yeah,
where Palm Beach, Atlantic is. Never even
it's
heard of it. Sorry. But then you
yeah,
have
it's
Eckerd
nothing.
College, Eckerd, okay, bit over half. And then Florida Institute of Technology, 64.4. Okay, not bad. But
Hmm.
then you have like Florida A&M. That's of course a big one. That's
Yeah.
32.9. That makes sense because that's like a really I consider them like North Carolina A&T, like really premier HBCUs of the South.
Hmm. Yeah, for
University of
sure.
Campus 26.3, which I guess makes sense.
Because
I
they're a
guess if it's like
private
University of
university.
Miami, yeah, like Miami, which is 18.9. So and UF, which is 23.3. So UCF even is 41%. So that's the higher
Oh,
end of those universities that you just mentioned.
okay.
So wow, look at
Oh,
you, 1 in 4. I mean, just
hey,
2022, but still, just fun
yeah,
little tangent to look at.
yeah, that's good. Like, I never understood like why FSU and UCF are sort of like similar in terms. Like, I don't know how like things were measured because like when you're in honors and AP classes with other students and stuff like you just have like that level of measuring of things. So it's like,
Mm,
oh, everybody's backup school was FAU, but because it was like down the street, and it was like at the time it was a commuter school. Now it's becoming like like more of a school that people like go to. Like they have one of the best like MBAs in the country.
oh, nice.
But FAU is like a good school. It's just like growing up, we just like kind of just saw it as just like a very easy school to get into because it was. I don't know how it is now, but like it is like a legitimately like really good university.
Yeah,
Um, and also it's like closest to the beach. I think it's the closest university to the beach, to a beach.
to the beach. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in okay. Yeah, there are all these different. Yeah, because Atlantic University is there. Boca Raton, if that's how you say it, Boca
Hmm.
Raton.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, wow. There's so much to explore out there. Anyway, when I get out there, definitely you're the first person I'm like gonna just be like, oh my gosh, Al, I'm here.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Did you ever have a negative, impactful moment that changed you for the better? Like something that like happened to you that was like you kind of want to like maybe like curse that person out or like I don't know, like that may have changed you for the better. And you look back on it.
Yeah, maybe this would be my because there are some experiences that I feel like lessons were learned ish, but I still made certain mistakes. But I know when I was in grad school, no, not grad school, working full time, and I dealt with like squatters, which I know I've mentioned this before. But for the record, just like I had people who needed to stay and crash at my apartment, but then it was just dragging out. And I suspected that
Mm.
they were doing certain illicit activity. Like I noticed certain
Oh.
things going missing. Not
Ooh.
like not like I would say anything like appliances or like kitchenware, but like sometimes just I don't know random things like and so I was just like figuring out how to because I just was not I feel like I just didn't feel like strong enough for just like I felt like I just like didn't feel bold enough to just speak up directly. I was trying to kind of like inquire about okay, hey, what's the timeline? I really kind of need my space back, but they weren't really getting either they were purposefully not or not understanding sincerely
Mm.
that I was asking them like, you guys can't really stay here much longer. So I'm just really making it a point like, hey, I kind of need to have my space as it was before because I had a lot other people coming in and out because I had a pool and had these different pool parties, which I know I used to mention some
Right,
years ago.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they kind of like helped me like get everyone else out so that I didn't feel so overwhelmed. But then they were taking advantage of just being there by
Mm.
themselves while they had their own situations they were dealing with. And so I would kind of say like I really need to have my own space back. But they either thought that I was just talking generically from the other people that were already kicked out versus them. But there was just a day where I had to be like, hey, you can't really stay here, you know. And it became this whole thing where they agreed to it, but then they were trying to like confront me on some other stuff that they felt like I was spreading their business around and talking crap about them, which may or may not have happened. It was more so that people would ask me about them, and of
Mm.
course, I'm just gonna honestly be like, yeah, these people are still here because I had friends who like did not want to come because they didn't like these guys. Mostly like women
Oh.
friends who didn't like these guys because they were like, these guys just are not great people. They're not really
Right.
respectful.
Yeah.
We don't feel good being here. So they were like, let me know when they're gone and we'll come back, hang out. Also, the pool had closed because it was Labor Day. So that was also a lack of a draw. But I still had friends who would have checked in on me, but they were just like, so what's going on? And so I guess information leaked somehow, but I do think that they just used that as an excuse to make it seem like I was in the wrong. And so I had to like learn not to trust people as much.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that was like just definitely not good experience. There
Yeah.
was
So
just a
like
lot of yeah.
they were like literally like staying in your apartment, like sleeping over and like staying for like days.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean shoot, because I remember one guy was there since like somewhere in the middle of August. The other guy came around Labor Day, and they ended up leaving like October 7th was the day, which is yeah October 7th, which is burned. It's actually funny because that day was burned into my memory. But now, of course, October 7th has like a much bigger meaning, but I just remember
Right.
that
Yeah.
day of like yeah October 7th, 2021. That was the day, and so one guy was there for almost 2 months, the other guy was there for like a month, and that was like in the living room. Now sometimes they would go like stay at another place for like a few days, but for the most part they were there
Mm.
just kind of in a row, like while they were trying to work things out because of whatever they needed to do and figure out because they got kicked out of their own respective places, quote unquote. But other people were skeptical because they were like, would their family actually like kick them out, or were they just living with other people and they didn't want to go
Oh.
back to living with family
Right.
because they felt like they had more freedom to just do whatever they wanted, roll up, smoke, blah blah blah. And like I did consider them friends at least beforehand, so I was kind of like, well, okay, get your stuff together. But then time would pass, and then I kind of noticed some weird stuff, and then there just was always another thing, like, oh, now this court date was pushed, and this thing that they had a hearing about, or someone had need to get their car fixed, but then this thing happened, and it's just like it just like things kept happening where what should have been like a week or 2 weeks then became a month and then 2 months. And so I was just like, hey, I just can't, like, you just can't be here after today. And it was not really, it was just a very uncomfortable thing to have to do and say, because I wanted to make it clear, like, without having to feel like I'm kicking them out, to just say, like, hey, find a place, try to like expedite this.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just got to the point where I'm like, hey, like, and apparently they were talking to other people because I had friends who said that they heard like these two guys were telling people, feeling like, yeah, I think Toby might kick us out. So it's like they weren't really talking to me about getting signals, but my friends, through other people that were more so friends with these guys, were kind of, because I would do things like I would start to clean up like the guest room, because there was a guest room with another mattress, and I like took the mattress out, I took stuff out. I was, because they could sleep on the couch, but I was trying to clean up and make things, because it's my apartment, I can do that. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
at some point, this guy I think was really drunk, so he just came in, and like while I was gone, I think he had came into my room because he brought his girlfriend um for a day, and so he had gone back to the mattress and took it out of my room, put it back into the guest room, went to sleep. And the other guy was like, "Yo, sorry about him. He was drunk, and he just like brought his girlfriend and decided that he was going to get the mattress out." And so after that weekend, I think that was also just like another signal of like, yeah, this can't happen. Even though that guy was the one who I actually didn't mind dealing with as much, but still,
That's still so messed up though.
it's still just like I was like,
So,
what is
so
happening?
yeah, like so they knew that you wanted them out, and they were telling
Yeah,
other people. It's like, yeah, it's like, well, yeah, obviously they want like
yeah.
you want your own
It's like a
space back.
99.9% sure that it wasn't like a surprise, and that
Like,
they
were
were
they
just trying.
paying any kind of like rent or like buying groceries or paying any bill or anything?
They like would sometimes clean, like especially the first guy, the one who brought the girl in, but like the one who was there earlier, he would try to like sometimes be like, yo, like let's get up and like let's clean, let's vacuum the floor, like let's make things more whole, let's wash dishes if they're not washed. Sometimes, I mean, they didn't really cook like that, but sometimes they would make something. And I had my other friends, my women friends, who would come over. So if they ever cooked, sometimes the guys would wash the dishes. So it's like this could be like an actual useful situation, but it wasn't really. I wasn't really getting much out of it. Like I'm not. They're not paying bills, even though I didn't want to make that a thing because I was like, if that's the case, they might really feel entitled to owning part of this. But I could have just been like, hey, if you guys are gonna be here and it's not just a day, you're gonna have to pay. Maybe I should have just hit them with like you would have to pay rent and bills if you're gonna be here for more
Yeah.
than just like a week or two, and then maybe that would have expedited them to get out, or it could have made them feel like, okay, great, now we have an agreement. Which I would just figured I didn't really want that, but maybe I could have brought it up as like a negotiating chip so that they could have felt more pressure. But 3 years ago, or at this point, 4 years ago. So it's kind of like, wow, that happened. But I kind of learned. Um, I learned from it. I When I got to a new apartment with a roommate, my roommate knew about this situation, so she was like, "We're not gonna
Mm,
have people like this over. We're not gonna have this type of stuff happen." Now I had
good.
plenty of situations. I had things, weird, strange things that ended up happening in that living situation. That, anyways,
Do you
that
want to talk? Okay.
that's a whole nother thing. But I would say that at least there was some good that like my friend at least knew about some things because we were able to not have as much chaos in our apartment, and where we lived was also not right next door to where I used to be. So it wasn't just like, hey, 5-10 minutes away, people can just come. It was 25 minutes from where I used to live, which it still isn't crazy far, but it's enough of a distance that people who don't have cars are a bit more locked there are not going to come out my way. Um,
Mhm.
it's just different neighborhood, different town. And it was distance that I kind of needed, but it did, I guess, help me like figure out like the fine line between trusting people, being a little more selfish. If I know I can't do something for someone, feeling like just not wanting to be taken advantage of, because that had happened
Mhm.
in other ways too, even financially, where I would help people out with stuff. People would be very slow to pay me back, including this past roommate. But whatever, we move at this point. I'm already not getting money back. I'm not getting money back from a lot of people. The squatters for certain things that happened there, and money that I helped give them. My past roommate for things that absolutely were owed to me, but whatever. And then there were some other instances where it's just like if it's something where someone just is like, hey, I really need something, I need 50, 25, something happened. Some of that I can just write off and be like, even if I don't get paid back, that's chill. But if it's like a recurring thing where
Right.
someone
Yeah.
really says they're going to do this, or they actually owe me for something, like furniture, there's just a lot where it's like, I just am like, why has this happened? And I try to be like respectful, but also a bit more firm. And it just seems that like there's always some kind of, there's always some kind of like I kind of just feel like I'm trying to like not give myself the impression. My mom said this. She didn't know about all these situations, but she knew about the financial ones for the most part. And she was like, you can't give people the impression that you're like a bank or that you're a financial
Yeah. Yeah. I was just gonna
institution where
say.
they feel comfortable. Like that shouldn't even be so comfortable where people just casually ask like, regularly. Like things happen if someone needs 20 or 30, something like that can happen. But if it's like irregular and it's large amounts, which sometimes it was for certain people, um, then it becomes like, what's the perception that I have? And so I definitely have gotten in some ways more withdrawn. I feel like I don't really help people out like that. Like maybe if I need to give a ride, but it's just, I'm very in a very different place now in Maryland, and people typically have their own stuff. People have their own way around. People have a different mindset too. I feel like people aren't as crazy as some of the people I used to know in Massachusetts. Not like the whole state, but just like where I was living. I was like, people are just like so off. Like it's just
Mm.
so weird. And I haven't dealt with a lot of those dynamics, so I feel like generally the lessons are still important, but I've also just been away from people who are draining and chaos and just sort of like leeches, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's been a very important thing because it's just like, bro, like that 25, like 25 to 27, like there was the weird time in where I was like 26, 27, 28, late 20s. And I was like,
Mm.
this can't happen. Like, we can't be doing this. We can't
Right.
be doing
Yeah.
this going into the future.
No, I totally hear you. It hasn't been like too often where people have asked me for money, and like like some of like my like really good friends, who I know like would pay me back for sure. Like, I would, give them an amount because I understand that like sometimes things get overwhelming and ahead of you, and you just don't have the money, or you will next week, and you're just trying to make it to payday and like that. I fully understand. There was a time though where like this was pretty soon after I bought my place.
Mm,
And like I bought my place at 24, which like thinking back on it is crazy. Like it made me think about when you said like when you got your master's at 23. It's like, yeah, that's insane. um so like I think people probably thought I had more money than I did. I remember one of my friends like asked me for like $100 because like she gave $100 to like this guy who like I guess went and gambled it, and
mm,
was wondering like why they weren't giving the money back to her. Like she would see them like on I guess social media like at the casino or just like flashing a whole bunch of money, but would just
mm.
never give her the money back. And I was just like it was so weird because she's like never asked for me for money. She's never done it again after that either. But it was just like I'm not rich by any means. Like I don't have this kind of money. I was wondering if like your friends, or I guess former friends at this point, did they think that you were like rich, that you had like a lot of money?
Well, I know they knew that I was probably like, good job. I worked in tech.
Right. Yeah.
Seemed to be responsible. I had my own apartment. I lived by myself. I had a car that I was paying. So it was like I clearly seemed to be in like a good financial situation at least. And of course,
Mhm.
being in Massachusetts, like I moved here by myself, don't live with family. I feel like those are all things that people can see. I'm like, okay, I'm well off enough. Like I don't flaunt whatever, but I'm well off enough that I'm clearly able to hang and I'm in a decent situation. I guess like that probably did like send signals to people. But it's weird because
Mhm.
when I was hanging around more of like the let's call them the black professionals,
Mhm.
in the actual like more directly Boston adjacent area, most of those people also kind of are like pretty good careers. Like they are working professionals. I mean, anything can happen, but like it's not like, oh my gosh, if I introduce myself and I'm doing this thing, then it's like I'm so much above you. Like I feel like it's normal. I met so many people in different careers, healthcare, entrepreneurship, business, law. Like I
Right.
knew people in
Yeah.
all these fields, so it's like, yeah, I mean, we all have money to some degree. Like I mean, some people live with their family, some people do things to like mitigate, of course, the expensive area. But it wasn't until I think I moved to like the Lowell, right? And so when I lived there,
Mhm.
just different. Like it's a much wider community, a lot more working class in some ways. Like it kind of was like an old mill city, and you just kind of have more of a small city feeling. People in all types of income ladders, which you can of course find in Boston. But like if you go to Boston, you're probably going to see the people who are more like in the kind of at least somewhat wealthier or at least somewhat more
Oh yeah, for
professional-ish.
sure.
But when
Yeah.
I was out in Lowell, I mean, it was really all over the place. You had African communities. I mean, communities that were very diverse in all sense of the words. And so I think like maybe like there were many people I met who didn't graduate from college. Some of them were just young, so they were still taking classes, and the COVID had hit, so that also derailed some people. Some people did community college, but then never finished, and they're like my age, and they just didn't have a degree. Which is,
Mhm.
that's everyone has a different life, but it's just massively different than the crowd I was hanging out with in like Boston proper, definitely upstate New York, where I was in grad school, and not everyone was in grad school, but they were undergrads or they were working, so they already had some kind of degree, and they were working adjacent to the universities, maybe in like some kind of diversity or black or health or whatever. So it was just like such a culture shock too to like see people in all types of areas. And I mean, there were people who did work, but a lot of people also just kind of like dependent on certain benefits. And I'm not knocking that, but it's just different. Like I think it
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
different to meet people who weren't necessarily working professionals. They might not hold a job down for very long. They kind of rely on other things, or they have family or whatever. And so, um, yeah, I think the reason, sorry, it was a bit of a tangent, but it's just that I think there was probably a noticeable perception gap between me, um, and some of them. Now, these two guys, I mean, one of them definitely was. I mean, he apparently was kind of smart in high school, but then he ended up going to jail for something.
Mhm.
And he still seemed like he could have been a good kid, but just I think was definitely not with the right crowd all the time. And then the other guy seemed to be much more like he actually seemed like he was more together. He seemed cleaner. He seemed more on top of his stuff. But then I found out that he wasn't really. He ain't ish either. He ain't ish either apparently. And that's not to say that everyone who's in like who's not fully together is like going to be morally bad or like gonna fall
Right.
into like criminal activity or anything. But I do feel like it just they I don't know if they were making something of themselves like that seriously. And you kind of just end up taking advantage of people who have more, instead of just getting more yourself, which is unfortunate, but you know.
Yeah. Very capitalist of you.
you know,
So, since you've never had a girlfriend, would you say that you could have possibly fallen into like inceldom at any point? Were you ever like close to it?
yeah, I don't. Because I even remember like thinking like what is an incel, and um I definitely never identified that way, and I never really felt too like, woe is me, why can't women notice me, and I'm involuntarily here because they just won't. I mean, I was kind of happy to be single, and so I think I didn't necessarily look for communities of people who were single for what felt like was out of their control. I kind of felt like, well, I'm grateful actually that I wasn't dating. I think because it would have just been complicated.
Mm,
Um, Having a family where dating wasn't really a thing, older siblings didn't date, and being the youngest is like, oh. So, I mean, for you, like if you have six older siblings and none of them are dating, that can be really daunting where it's like, oh, snap. Now what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to be like the first real relationship in the family.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Some people don't care. Some people are just like, oh, whatever. But
Mm,
for me, I'm just like, and then I had like other things that I feel like I was into, whether it was more like Christianity, spiritual. Like there were times where I would focus more on myself, and I really felt like if I'm gonna date, it's gonna have to be really for marriage. Then I kind of like I don't want to say grew out of that, but then I kind of wasn't really in that vibe as much anymore. So I don't think that with falling, I don't know if I would have had a risk of falling into something because I was just always low key. Like I'm just kind of glad that I'm not in a relationship, and it's not because of women. I'm glad not. It was more so the idea of I felt like I couldn't really do it with my heart in it because I'm always going to be worrying about perceptions of other people, particularly family and community, church maybe, and
oh,
feeling
okay.
like I don't really know. Like that's just going to be a lot. Like just having my own dating, cool. I could just date people here and there if
Mm,
I just wanted to, but at some point things could actually become more serious. And what's that actually mean for me? Because that's just that traditional idea of taking people on dates, dating someone. It just doesn't exist really. My brother isn't doing it. Okay, let me not speak for him, but like I'm not seeing it in my
okay.
family, just from what I can tell and what our conversations amongst ourselves are. And then my sisters definitely aren't. So I think like even all of that talk about it, when I heard about it, I was like, what is it? So I was just like, what is this? Like the idea that you're involved. I was like, it's such like a just like a weird cringe sounding internet thing. But it's like become more almost more mainstream. Like there's more people like the word gets used more in a mainstream way to describe certain talking points that certain guys will have. And I think even on a more mainstream way, I don't know if I would have fallen into inceldom just because blame I didn't really think of, oh my gosh, women are the cause
Like
of
you
my
didn't
problems.
blame like outside things or women particularly as to why you were uh, like single for like and are single.
Yeah, no, like it was just funny, yeah, because I am single and I've been single for this long and go undergrad, working full time, which was only like a year and a month before COVID, and then COVID threw everything in a loop. Like I wasn't really like actively looking. I was happy to just be single. Maybe I would start to explore, but then never really did. And I wasn't upset about it. I didn't have any internal conflicts really of like wishing that I wasn't and blaming people for it. Like again, I was happy. I was like, yeah, no, I'm very happy to just be single. I guess outside of dating, I mean, even like it wasn't like, oh, I'm actively trying to pick people up and hook up and I'm like mad about that either. So I just didn't really have like that animosity towards, I guess, like women for being single this long. I didn't look. I'm like, oh my god. Like I would actually jokingly say, thank God I made another year. I made it through another year remaining single. Like it's not like half a joke because it's not. I always feel like, oh my god, I'm gonna get caught up in a relationship one of these days, and then it's gonna be so different. So I just did not have the perception of like the resentment. Yeah, I guess it's just like I really couldn't relate to the idea of the incels. That's definitely one of those cringe things when you read certain comments online and you're like, wow, this is like actually real. I mean, I guess people who've
Mhm.
been through really bad relationships or been through something could maybe trigger that, but I was like, this is just such a strange worldview for me.
Yeah. Um, like, granted, there are like people, men that go through some very like triggering and like traumatic relationship, and like it's like truly traumatic. A lot of the times, it's like either they never been in a relationship, or they got cheated on, or something like that, or it's like, like it's not really like villain story enough. It's just like,
Mm,
I remember like Chris Rock had a joke that's like saying like, he pretty much said like everybody's been cheated on, and it's like, it's true. Even though that guy, my ex, wasn't my boyfriend, he kind of in a way cheated on me, and
mm,
it's just sort of like, yeah, like it freaking blows, but it's like, I think it's one of those things where it's, since it's something that happens to everybody. Like, first of all, like love, relationships, and all that happens is something that everybody walking the earth is interested in, and to some degree. So it's a very easy like topic to talk about, because like
mm,
everybody kind of can talk about it, has like some sort of opinions on it to some extent. So it could grab a lot of people, and also people don't want to be alone.
mm,
People want like a relationship, like, and that makes perfect and a lot of sense. It's just really sad and also disturbing when people, like when like these certain like influencers, or like internet celebrities or what have you, like just take advantage of young people, young boys, young girls, young men, young women, and essentially commodify their their loneliness, and say like, oh, you
mm,
need to do X, Y, and Z, and you're like this because of these people. And it's like, no, it's like, oh, your women are like this, and you should treat them like shit, which makes no sense. And then they
mm,
go ahead and do that, and then it's like the women don't like them, or the woman gets into a tragically like an abusive, horrific relationship because of, just because of what this guy thought what being a man is, or being like a boyfriend or a husband or what have you. But I did want to ask, do you want a relationship? Do you want to be in a relationship?
question. I think it would be nice. I feel like there have definitely been opportunities to maybe get to know people, pursue people, and I've just been pretty uninterested right now. But I think that would be nice at some point. I was just watching a show, and one of the characters was like, we aren't meant to, because someone actually lost her husband, and they were trying to convince her to start dating, like,
Mm.
I don't know, a year or so after. And um, one guy was like, yeah, just women aren't meant, like people we're on this earth aren't meant to go through life, by ourselves. And for me, I'm like, haha, that's so funny because I have been. I mean, I guess I have had other community, I've had other forms of community, right? Other sources of
Right.
community.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh my gosh, I've been completely alone. But I
Right.
do think that I've been relatively independent in a lot of ways, and I just kind of like have made it through that. 'Cause I mean, life will change. There'll be definitely more that I guess having a partner absolutely could help with, but I don't know. It's not something that's in my immediate. I've been mostly focused on just other things, particularly certain financial ventures, which not ventures, but just making sure I'm in a good solid ground, which has become much better. Um, a journey that has been multi-year, I would say really seriously since last year, late maybe 2023, and we are in a much much better place. But I still feel like I always want to get myself more together to a point where I could give myself more, um, and feel like I'm actually, I don't know, not regressing. Like I'm like there's things that I still need to work on, and you're never gonna be perfect before you date, but like I feel
Right.
like there's just certain critical things that I'm like I need to do. And now, granted, a lot of times I put these things off, or I'm like not making headway towards these things. But I've just am like, do I want to date? And when I talk to my parents, it's weird because I don't remember how it came up, but somehow they were asking about not if I'm dating, but just like I don't know if it was they were asking about my finances and if that was part of the picture, but they just said something in passing, and I kind of mentioned to them how I have not been dating, and I kind of felt like they may not encourage it because at one point my mom was telling me like earlier in the year, maybe February, maybe January, she was like she really wanted me to not focus on anything outside of work because of all the government stuff happening, right? So
Mhm.
all the government contracts, really federal government workers being kind of demolished, and she was like, just with uncertain times, I feel like I don't want, I shouldn't be spending money on anything. Like, which I kind of was like, well, I really can't commit to that. Like, I'm already much better at my spending. I would think I can be better, but I'm not really reckless with it. I don't think, and I kind of felt like, yeah, I don't want to just commit to not spending anything. And so when I brought this up a few weeks ago, I think Mother's Day, or I was home another time, and I was
Mhm.
talking to my parents, and they were like, well, my mom said like, well, you're a young man. I figure you might be, or I expect that you will be. I kind of expected. I basically what I said was that I thought that they would be so against it because they would want me to not spend money and time and energy. Because I always feel like they're just always. I wouldn't say worried, but there are things that I need to get together, and I feel like maybe because I'm the youngest, they kind of, especially my mom will sometimes take a special interest, and I feel like there can be a lot of concern. So I even felt like, well, for dating, they probably wouldn't even approve of it. But now it seems like she's perfectly content if I was. And it's not just about what she wants, but I do feel like, again, am I in a place where I can be dating and feel comfortable dating and possibly have someone who I would actually be bringing around? And I don't know, like the idea of it, I think is still, it's just so weird. Like, wow, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
Um, my cousins, I know one has brought someone he was dating. I mean, they're part of like the same African Christian fellowship, like in church, but they kind of dated on and off. Um, so that's like one thing where someone's brought someone to Thanksgiving, and then otherwise it's always just been friends. So it's like it's weird to I feel like have a partner. The cousin on that side, the youngest, because it's like the same dynamic of two youngest guys and two older girls,
Oh, okay.
and so that youngest guy is married. He got married in 2020. Um,
How old is he?
he would be 32, I want to say, because he's like my brother's age, so 2 years older. Should be
So he,
class of 20.
so he got
Oh,
married when he was like 27?
yeah, yeah, no, really, look at you. That was quick maths. Because yeah, no, that's right. Because I was 25 in 2020, literally March, and he would have turned 27 in April if the years match up. So
Mhm.
yeah, he got married, and I think she was also the same age because she graduated, I believe, the same year. And they got their masters together at the same school as well. So yeah, I mean they did it
I
relatively
wanted
young.
I wanted so 27, 28 is young. Like is um like your parents any reason why you're not really dating or you don't really want to?
Yeah, I mean it was always that was kind of the big thing was okay. Dating's not encouraged. It's not forbidden. It's just we don't do it. And when people bring it
Right.
up, you're just kind of told that this isn't something that happens. And then in
Mm.
college, it wasn't like people were talking about it in the college years. My brother wanted to in high school, but then that didn't work out. In college, he wasn't. So it's not like there was a conversation there. I started getting more into like again more Christian religious stuff where I was like, I'm not gonna touch this until I'm really ready because this is gonna go to marriage. And then, once I graduated, I kind of took a step back and I wasn't actively as much involved. Like I would still go to church and stuff, but it was kind of a different group, and I wasn't explicitly thinking, well, now it's because of my beliefs of like dating before marriage. But that still does come up because it's like if that's the goal, then what am I really doing here? And marriage is not something that I'm looking for in the near term. But now I'm 30. Not that I'm like feeling pressure, but it's like I can't just kind of be like, haha, 25, and marriage is this thing that I'm like, it's like, oh, well. And I know obviously you're like a few years older than me, so I'm not trying to say
Yeah.
anything about
No,
you,
but
but
it's true though. Like it's a
it's
weird feeling when like you're in your 30s and it's like your friends have kids and it's like that is
yeah,
not weird at all. You know, like that is a totally fine age to have a child. Like you
yeah,
can't, you know, that's totally fine to like get married. Like I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years and I told one of my coworkers and like she and I are like the same age. And when I mentioned that, like, yeah, I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years, like she was like, oh, so it's kind of getting ready for, you know, like for marriage. And I was like, that's not even like a thought that I'm like really having. You
mm,
know, like he doesn't even like live with me yet.
yeah,
So, you know, it is crazy how like when you're in your 20s like it's fine and then as soon as you hit 30 it's just like, "Oh, this is I can't really like you know, it's like you can't really say anything about like, you know, like it's weird." Cuz I feel like COVID and like, you know, shuttering in for so long just it's like the years just kind of flew by and like it kind of just like ate up a lot of in your case like a lot of your 20s and then like for me it was like my like late 20s early 30s,
mm,
so it's just like it just feels weird to like be the age that I am
yeah,
but to like but I don't feel it, which is like a good thing.
yeah,
It's just sort of like I don't know, like it's weird to be like suddenly of the age of like being married, having kids, and all that. And I feel like, especially because like I bought my place at 24, like I always felt like that milestone had like flew out the window like way early, so I didn't
yeah,
really like think of anything about it. And then it's like, oh yeah, there's like other things that I, you know, other like life milestones. Um, but I do want to ask this, Toby, and I would say that this will be our last question before we have to part.
I know.
Uh, I want to ask, do you feel like that you're enough?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think so. I mean, there were times. Well, I've definitely had my own self doubts about not feeling, I don't know, bold enough, or maybe I don't have as much. Like maybe I'm too quiet at times, or I don't have enough direction. Then there are other things I'm dealing with. I guess I just kind of flow with things right now, where I'm like, this is just me. There are a lot of things that absolutely I know I need to work on. Some more critical than others, but I do try to like have the self worth aspect a lot better, where I do feel like, yeah, I am how I am, and you know, I'm glad
Yeah,
to be here. I'm glad that people get to experience me, not in like any kind of like
like
really
narcissistic way. No,
just
I get
way,
it.
but I especially like for if people say nice things about me, or if I do seem to generally have a good impact on people, I'm like, okay, good. I do feel like I have some friends who absolutely like appreciate me and let me know. So that doesn't mean like there aren't other things to work on, but like I do feel, I would say generally I do, like there's so much that I know that should change just for the sake of like sanity, productivity, and other stuff. But like I try to at least see myself in the light of, I guess, being enough.
Yeah,
Um,
and you feel like you're enough for a relationship?
oh, okay, yeah, and that, you
Well, like it
know,
was either like it was
it was.
both.
I mean, yeah, I guess in the relationship sense, funny enough, I do kind of feel like, oh man, like there are missing pieces, because I even one person was telling me that like they kind of liked, my more quiet, very calm energy, and I would kind of feel like, not that I should force it to not be that way, but sometimes I kind of feel like I'm a little too easygoing or chill, or maybe I need to have more of like, I don't know, like there's a joke, like I've seen this kind of joke where it was like, not a joke per se, but it was something that went viral of like, why do quiet guys seem to get attracted more towards the really bold, assertive women? And one guy said like, because um someone needs to tell the server that they forgot the side of garlic, and it's not going to be me or something. And so I was like, it doesn't necessarily have to like obviously that's like more of a humorous example, but you can still have a compliment of someone who can look out for you, even if you're not always like you still have to have your own way of standing up for yourself in your own way, but you don't necessarily. I guess I've been more okay with like knowing that I'm not like the most out there and the most just like jump up first and address something. Like there are people that can do that, and it doesn't mean that I'm like doomed to fail in a relationship because again, it kind of feels like as the guy, you're the one that really needs to be watching out for everything, protecting, doing everything like
Mm.
this, and sometimes that also can make me anxious of like man, like because I really don't enjoy conflict. And then you'll do what you need to do for your family, for the people you love. But like I'm feeling like, man, I don't know if I want to like always feel like I'm on guard and like having to like deal with situations and possibly fires. And so sometimes I do feel like, am I enough? Am I enough to take charge of certain situations and to guide a whole family or at least a partner into a lifetime of being together. Now our relationships are destined for that, and I have to remember that. But that's usually the intent, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes I do kind of struggle. I think with feeling like, am I enough with that? With how I am? Am I too passive with things, situations, or even my own journey in life with my career? Because there's a lot of things where I just feel like I'm kind of a lot passive, and so sometimes I don't quite feel like I'm enough. Like I mentioned something early in the year where I was like, maybe I'll do kickboxing or something or some martial art or something to get myself more fit. And maybe that will also mentally help me feel more comfortable confronting situations because I can physically do it. Now I
Okay.
never looked more into that. Actually, I tried looking at just the basic Planet Fitness. I got so annoyed when I found out they needed a credit card and a debit card. I was like, or and a bank account. I was like, they draft your bank? They should be drafting the credit card.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, I was looking, and apparently the monthly charge is drafting from the bank, and so I was like, why? I
That's
don't like to pay out of.
insane.
Yeah, thank you. I was like, that just
That
seems
is
very
like that's credit
odd.
card territory. Like what the heck are they talking about?
It's like they have one for the yearly fee, but then for the monthly one, it's I was like, what? So for anyway, the reason why because I was like, I do still want to get myself more, not just for fitness and health, but I think that kind of engagement and that's like just a good thing to have because I do feel like I'm not always good at in the moment confronting something that needs to be confronted or something that could lead to more conflict, and I know that's a big life skill just generally. Like I've been in situations that have been dynamic, like being a teaching assistant or um dealing with other things. Like I've definitely been in dynamic situations, absolutely, but I just feel like there's something that sometimes feels like I'm missing it for something as serious as a relationship. And I mean, relationships, maybe I'm just seeing it more serious than they need to be. People say that if you're dating, you should be having fun. And that should be a big thing. Like you should be
Mm.
going there and having fun. Like obviously be respectful. Obviously make sure that you're kind of taking care of business. But I think a lot about like I don't know. I just sometimes feel like I'm just going with the flow of things, and I'm just not committed enough. Like not committed in the faithful term, but like for a relationship, I just don't know if I really have that like passion, that fire of like, yeah, I really want this. And sometimes
Mhm.
I kind of feel like I need that spark or that like drive. Otherwise, I'll just be going with something because maybe this is cool, but I'm not the one driving things, or I'm not really putting my own personal passion or opinion into it. I'm just kind of going with it either to make someone else happy or to just, I don't know. It's kind of all over the place, but I would say that I have sometimes felt like I was missing something in the relationship aspect. Maybe I'm not. Maybe everything is as it needs to be, and I'm really as good or as
You are.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Uh,
appreciate that.
I think you definitely put like a lot of pressure on yourself as to how you need to be in a relationship. Remember like this future person is your partner. So there's going to be times when, they'll like they're your partner, they're your equals. So like there's going to be times when like there's things that they're better at than you and there's things that you're going to be better at than they are and like that's how you guys kind of balance each other out. It's not going to be like 50-50 every day or like there's going to be days when like shit hits the fan and you could only give like 2% that day and they have to bring in 98% and vice versa. Yeah, it does sound like you're definitely like putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Like I definitely was like that as well. I wanted to make sure of course that I'm like monetarily stable, which I am, but I just didn't want to feel like I had to need a man,
Mm,
because of this, like, pretty much like how I grew up. Like, it's not like my mom needed my dad by any means. It was just they just stayed in a really long toxic relationship for really no reason. Well, no, I want to say it was no reason, but like it was just kind of like, yeah, I just don't want a relationship like that whatsoever. So it's like, okay, I gotta find like, a very, like, I want to say like a particular man. Like, I knew like a man like my boyfriend existed because of, honestly, because of my guy friends. If I
mm,
was like, all right, if these aspects exist in men, like it may not be like all of them all together all at once, but I would have guy friends that had a lot of traits and aspects that I really adored, and I'm like, okay, so this exists, so I'll just have to try and find it in a partner. Yeah, and I feel like I did with my current boyfriend.
oh, I'm happy to hear
Uh,
that.
yeah. I had issues of I had definitely times where I just did not feel like I was enough. I felt like something was wrong with me. You know how I say do it scared? If there's something that you want to do,
Mm,
you're too
yeah.
afraid to do it, just do it scared. That's kind of how I got it. Like, why I was like, you know what? I've gone on like one date, and if it's like the littlest of things that bothers me about a guy, I would just be like, yeah, no. There's certain things that are just like absolutely no, like if this man just never asks me a question, then it's a no. If
Mm.
this like, if he's just like, if he calls himself an asshole, if he considers himself an asshole, that's an automatic no. You'd
Wow.
be surprised by how it's like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit of an asshole. It's like, all right, well, you're a little bit of not a second date. So
Thanks.
there's like, of course, like the just hardcore red flag absolute knots, but if it was just like, I don't know, just like little things, I kind of learned to just like sort of look past it and just kind of get over myself, because I'm like, I'm sure there's little things that I'm doing that, it's just like I
Yeah.
never really like thought of like myself, and like there's times when my boyfriend points out things and I was like, Really?" And it's sort
Mm,
of funny, but it's very nice to like be with someone who like focuses on like the little things that you do that you don't even realize that you're doing,
mm,
and he loves it all the same.
yeah.
um so you are perfect, you are amazing just the way you are, Toby.
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
are you are absolutely enough. Just in case you were, if there's ever a moment of doubt that goes into your brain, like later on in the year or years or what have you, just know that
Yes.
yes,
The
the
L
answer,
seal
thinks,
is
yeah.
purple. Yeah.
Yes.
I really do appreciate that. Very kind.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Toby, for coming on. This was
Yeah.
awesome.
It's great. No, I'm glad to. This is the first like the first virtual one that you've had in this series.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely glad to also help work out any kinks because yeah, virtual is always just
I know.
it's convenient, but there's always hiccups just because software love to be how it be. Um,
Software be software.
software be software.
So,
No, yeah, it's
Toby,
great.
is there anything that you like to promote, or where
Oh
people can
man.
find you, if you're okay with that?
Um, I mean, I don't really have any personal like projects like that. I mean, I'm on social media. It's just the problem is I don't actively use all my social media like that. I know I have
Okay.
like a TikTok with like 4 TikToks, so that's easier probably like to see if someone comments on. I have Instagram with the reels and posts, but you can find me Toby. I can't even really. I could spell it, but I probably won't because it's a lot. It's long, and it is what it is.
Okay.
If my name, like if you have the description, you feel free
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like
I'll put in the description below.
yeah. So if you search me, you're gonna find me in like only me. And even like if you want to put my socials out there, that's perfectly fine. I just don't have really anything I'm personally working on right now. If I could shout something out for someone else, I would, but I can't think off the top of my head. Um,
Okay.
But no, that's good. That's a good question. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, of course. Alrighty, Toby. Thank you so much.
All right. Yes, thank you. This has been really good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. Look forward to see what the future brings.